I think we're going to introduce our final guest of the afternoon, Lee from 49er Faithful UK. How are you doing, man?
Yeah, not bad, Matthew. How are you?
Doing very well. A bit bleary-eyed this morning and
Yeah, me
suffering
too.
with a sleep deprivation, but there we go. Thank you so much for coming on and donating your time. We really appreciate
Yeah,
it.
no problem.
Why don't you tell us a bit about yourself to kick us off?
Okay, so my name's Lee Gowland. I've been running the 49er Faithful UK group since 2015. The group's actually been around since 2010. We've got a really good group of admins there. There's quite a few of us. We have meetups during the season. We try to make it with a regular season game, but obviously we West Coast based, so it's difficult because all of our games tend to be late on. So it's difficult to try and get somewhere that'll show the game that late on. But yeah, we're trying to have meetups. We are regularly online together. Last night we were on a Zoom call until 5 o'clock this morning. And to be honest, that Zoom call, I think we were all very underwhelmed with the way day two went. Day one, we were over the moon about day one with the Trey Lance pick. But yeah, last night seemed to be a long night that didn't yield the results that we were expecting, to be honest.
So let's examine that a little bit more. Trey Lance at 3. You obviously gave up the house, the farm, and
Yeah.
everything in between to move up. Do you think that was the intention overall? There were rumours that the head coach was enamoured with someone else, and everyone else was pulling for Trey Lance. It seemed like the media and everyone else thought that you should take Fields. So between the men in the room, the
Yeah.
media, and the other guy, you're all pulling for someone else. Do you think it was the right decision?
Yes. Yes. So I think the wrong decision would have been Mac Jones. I think he was the wrong person, definitely for the fan base. So the way we run our group, the 49 for UK, we try and stay away from any conflict and try to keep it positive. I think had Mac Jones have been the pick there at number 3, I'd have had my work cut out for us for the next few weeks, trying to calm everybody down. So as far as who Shanahan wanted and the rumours, what we found since Shanahan and Lynch came in 4 years ago is there's no leaks at all that come out of Santa Clara. So the rumours are purely speculation, people trying to join the dots together and doing a really bad job of it, which is great for us because as 49er fans, we knew this was all rumours. Nobody knew what was going to happen. Shanahan would have had his own thoughts on that all the way through. I do believe that Lance was his number one target all the way through. The fact that they came out and said Jimmy will be the starter next season, we knew it was going to be a development guy. So that takes away Mac Jones because Mac Jones can easily start day one. So that took him out of the way. Justin Fields, I had kind of the same feeling. I thought, you know what, he could probably start day one as well. And if I'm honest, I actually wanted us to take Justin Fields, but I'm actually happy with Trey Lance. There's a few concerns about Justin Fields. He holds on to the ball too long. His release time was 3.2 seconds, average release. He's got to be quicker than that in the NFL. He had these health issues that came out. They weren't too much of a concern, but I can understand why a GM might have been scared off taking him at number 3. When they find out he's got epilepsy. What was the other one? I had 3 things that kind of swayed us away from Justin Fields.
There were character concerns that he was the last in the building, first out, but I think that they were backtracked pretty quickly on. I didn't read
Yeah.
too much into that, but that is the other thing I think that might have factored in, maybe.
So I mean, so I heard those rumours as well. But Justin Fields was one of these guys that actually campaigned to get the Big Ten playing this year or last season.
Yeah.
So I don't think, I don't think work ethic or actually wanting to play, I don't think that would have been an issue.
No.
But at the end of the day, I mean, we took Trey Lance. The concern I have about Trey Lance is he's still very young. He's only played one full season, and that was his junior year. So potentially, if he's going to sit behind Jimmy for the first season, that's 2 years where he hasn't really had any competitive football. So that's a little bit of a concern. But then when you watch him, I can understand why Shanahan liked him. His footwork is great. His arm strength is unbelievable. I was watching some highlights the other day, and with a flick of the wrist, and he'd thrown it 70 yards through the air without any effort whatsoever, and it was just unbelievable. So I'm really excited. I think it's a really good pick. I'm glad that we're going to keep Jimmy for another year at least, and it's going to be interesting to see how we do next season. Because to be honest, last season we were absolutely decimated with injuries. Yet our defense, which was the biggest hit, our defense was still a number 5 defense. So the defense played at a decent level to get us into the playoffs. The thing that we were missing was a decent backup quarterback, because we can't rely on Jimmy being fit. And it's not Jimmy's quality as a quarterback. Jimmy can win. He can. He's proven that. He is a winner. It's just that the one attribute you want from a player in his position is availability. And he just hasn't had it over the years. So I can understand why they're doing what they are doing. Obviously, when you look at Jimmy, he doesn't have that big throw ability either. But again, because of the way the 49ers play, the way Shanahan schemes everything, you don't necessarily need that big player. It's great to have it. I mean, I'm not going to turn down a quarterback that has this big playability, who can put it into a small window and actually win the game on his own. But that was never asked of Jimmy. So I understand why Shanahan has gone down the route to bring somebody else in. I can't see Trey Lance starting day one. I might be wrong, but I can't see it.
No, I do think that he could be a starter this year. I think that that one thing I've seen from Lance is, although he's very inexperienced, he's probably going to be instantly one of the smartest guys on the team. He's a fanatic, as far as I've been led to believe from the media, in terms of the fact that he just spends pretty much all of his time learning the game, watching tape. He's a madman for it, much in the sort of Tom Brady sort of fashion of a student of the game. So I think if anyone can get there quickly, it might be him. Do you think that Jimmy's had an unfair bit of flack thrown at him? Because I think the Super Bowl year for you, he led you to it, and I think that he actually played quite a big part in it, contrary to perhaps what people say about Goff now. Obviously, that we have Goff, and people say, oh, he took them to a Super Bowl, and I don't actually think that he was a massive part of that. Whereas I think Jimmy was a big part of what he did for you.
Yeah.
But then late in the playoffs, Shanahan took decision making out of his hands and says, right, we're going to run the ball for the last 2 games pretty much, and you take the back seat. Do you think that Jimmy now gets a kind of bad rap because everyone remembers those last 2 games of the season rather than the 18 or so that preceded it?
Yeah, I mean, it's natural because of the position he plays that if you get to a Super Bowl, then you look at the quarterback. Why didn't the quarterback win that game? But for me, that game was definitely not Jimmy's loss. To me, the defense gave up. Sorry, they didn't give up. The defense thought they'd already won the game when they got that last interception from Mahomes at the start of the 4th quarter. And you could see they were just far too cocky about it. And for me, they just sat back. They thought, right, game over. Fantastic. And they got smacked in the mouth for it. So it's definitely not in Jimmy. But to answer your question, I do think he gets a lot of unfair flack about that. People seem to forget the game against the New Orleans Saints, where they stopped us running the ball and Jimmy outgunned Drew Brees. He actually he put on a show there, a passing display, and it was fantastic. He won us that game, and people seem to forget that. And that was on the road in the Superdome in an intimidating atmosphere, and he absolutely balled out.
Yeah, he definitely can do it. You talked about having an underwhelming day 2. You took
Yeah.
Aaron Banks at 48, Trey Sermon at 88, and Ambry Thomas at 102. What were you perhaps looking for, and what don't you see in the guys that you have taken to be disappointed?
So as far as the guys we've taken, I think the guys that we've taken will do fine. But I think the first 2 don't fill needs of priority. So all of our cornerbacks came back on 1-year contracts. So we managed to get Verrett, Mosley, Williams back. They're all out the door next year. It's debatable whether or not we'll be able to re-sign them. So we really needed to prioritize cornerback, and we didn't do that. So at 43, we could have had the likes of Asante Samuel, or we could have gone safety, which is also a need, and taken Trevon Moehrig. But we didn't. We went with the guard. And to me, we actually filled our biggest need on O-line in free agency when we brought in an experienced centre who can help the other guys. Because our O-line isn't as bad as what everybody makes it out to be. And I mean, Mike McGlinchey gets a lot of flack because his pass protection isn't great, which we know. But we were a running team, and he's one of the highest graded run protectors in the league. I think he graded 2nd. So that people seem to forget this. I think with Mike McGlinchey, if you put on a bit of weight, it would be a lot better for his pass protection because he gets bull rushed too often. So we've got a problem there, and we know we've got a problem there. We haven't brought in Aaron Banks to get rid of that problem because Aaron Banks is going to play a guard. And ironically enough, it was Mike McGlinchey who never shut up about Aaron Banks to John Lynch and convinced him to take him. But I think Aaron Banks, we could have easily have gotten him at 102. I think it's a hell of a reach to take him at 48. But John Lynch has come out and said, had they not traded back from 43, they'd have taken Aaron Banks there as well. So that to me was a little bit disappointing. It looks like a bit of a reach that. There was plenty of what I would say would be game-changing players available. And I've already named two of them, Samuel Jr. and Trevon Moehrig. Just before I came on live, that I could hear you talking about Elijah Molden, who went at 100. That's who I was hoping we would take at 102. I was absolutely good at it. And I can't believe he fell to 100. And then we've got our trade up into 88, and we take Trey Sermon. Again, Trey Sermon, he'd have been available there at 117, and we traded that pick away with 121. So I just feel as though we haven't made the best use of our picks on day two. We aren't getting the value that we could have had, and we're not addressing the needs that the fans think priorities, the likes of cornerback and safety. So that was disappointing. But then they pulled that back a little bit with 102, bringing in Ambry Thomas, and I thought that was an excellent pick. And I think he fell a lot further than what I was expecting him to fall. I was expecting him to go around about 60, 70. So I thought that was a good pickup.
Yeah, so
and it kind of brought the day two back a little bit. It gives a little bit more value after the disappointing reaches.
Yeah, I had him at 103 on my consensus board of where people might go. I kind of just built one by myself with the major organizations aggregated. So I think he went, for me, about roughly where I thought he would. But the thing about him is, I think he has a very low floor. He obviously opted out of 2020.
Yeah.
And he's a bit raw, but his ceiling is very, very high. He's a boom or bust player, but he's in an organization that obviously coaches very, very well. And if he's sitting for a year because you have cornerbacks in place already, I think he's in the best situation to succeed. I agree with you. I think it's a really shrewd pick. Yeah. Ryan, do you have any thoughts? Any questions?
Afternoon, Lee. My question is, you've just lost one of possibly the best defensive minds right now in the game, Robert Saleh. He'd always looked destined to move on head coach. How do you feel that is going to change the defense at all? Do you think that is going to have any effect, or what he's put in place will just carry on as normal, like he never left? Because he was such an energetic guy on the sideline.
He was
always getting involved and everything. I loved him. I wanted him as head coach, but the Jets have got a good guy, I think.
So, to be honest, I don't think it's going to affect us that much, because we'd already brought in his replacement the year before in DeMeco Ryans. We knew fine well that Robert Saleh was going to get a head coaching job very, very soon. We were actually quite surprised to keep him last year. As far as being one of the best defensive minds, I would say the jury's out on that as a 49ers fan, because for the first two seasons, defensively, we were absolutely garbage. And the only reason that changed was because we got Nick Bosa, and having a pass rush completely changed the way our defensive backs played. It gave them a lot more time to basically stop the wide receivers. So I don't particularly think there was a huge jump in the way Saleh coached the teams. I think it was the personnel on the field actually matched the system that we needed to play. And the fact that we brought in DeMeco Ryans, who plays exactly the same system, there's going to be very little change. I think the biggest miss we're going to have this season is actually losing the leadership of Richard Sherman. Not necessarily a player, because, to be honest, I mean, in the Super Bowl, he was smoked 5 for 5, and he has lost that bit pace. And I was kind of hoping that he might change to safety. He might switch over to safety, because he's lost that little bit pace, but he's got the vision. He's got the football brain about him. And I think he could do exactly the same as what Ronnie Lott did. Move over to safety and still be an all-pro at safety as well as a cornerback.
Makes a lot of sense. Logan Ryan did that, didn't he? He moved to safety. When you lose that speed backwards, you can make up for it coming downhill. Just going to say, you mentioned Nick Bosa, but for me, when I watch the 49ers, and I'm going to be putting money on this, my dark horse for the defensive player of the year has got to be Fred Warner. He is an outstanding linebacker. He is a do-it-all, everything kind of guy. My question is, though, how do you feel the dynamic in the NFC West has changed? Who's stocking up? Who's going down? Because from what I've seen, Seattle drafted another wide receiver. I don't feel like they're doing any help in the Russell Wilson situation, but Stafford's obviously joined the division now. It's arguably maybe one of the best divisions in football.
Yeah.
How do you see it panning out?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question, and I don't know if all fans will say this, but I still think the 49ers got the strongest roster in that division, without a shadow of a doubt. When I look at what Seattle's done, you're right, they brought in a wide receiver. They didn't particularly have a problem throwing the ball or getting touchdowns, so I don't know why they've done that. I know they've made some moves in the offseason to try and help the defense. They re-signed Carlos Dunlap. They've brought in Alden Smith for approximately 24 hours before he got done on a charge. Who else? They brought in our cornerback Witherspoon. So Spoon, we had a Marmite relationship with Spoon. You either loved him or you hated him. I can guarantee you the Seattle Seahawks will get 3 good games from him a season. But that'll be about it, because that's all we ever had of him. We had about 3 good games where it wasn't just good, but it was elite games. He was absolutely outstanding. And then he'd go missing for the rest of the season, and he'd do some really stupid mistakes. So I don't particularly think Seattle have addressed the problems they have, which is good for us. You look at the Cardinals. So the Cardinals have brought in a coverage guy as linebacker, Savin Collins. So I think that was a very, very good move for them. However, I said exactly the same about Isaiah Simmons last year. And to be honest, he was absolutely garbage against us both times. And I was disappointed because I actually had him down as defensive rookie of the year before the season started. I thought that was a really good move. So he was disappointing. They brought in wide receivers again, and they've got a really good wide receiver core. So they're building on strength, but they're not really attacking some of the weaknesses they've got. So that was a strange one. And then you look at the Rams, and to be honest, the Rams I'm not worried about, because I think Shanahan's got McShay's number. They just can't do anything against us. Aaron Donald, he's been absolutely absent the last 4 games against us, the last 2 seasons, and he was absolutely owned last season. Matt Stafford does worry us, because I can guarantee you, had they had Matt Stafford last year, they'd have probably beaten us both games. I think it was the connection, the usually reliable connection between Goff and Cooper Kupp that let them down in the games against us last season. They were reasonably close, but I've got to be honest, I think we will win that division again. I think we will go deep into the playoffs, and if we don't have any injuries, I think we're Super Bowl bound again.
Yeah, I completely agree. Actually, I think you're going to go under the radar because of what happened last year, but I would totally agree with you. I think the Rams have drafted poorly, and I think that Stafford is going to take a season to kind of bed into that offense. And also, you don't know how they're going to mesh head coach and quarterback. Seattle look like they're imploding from the inside and trying to patch it up. But I just think the relationship is so far gone now that I don't see it working particularly well on the field, especially if Wilson takes a couple of hits early. I think he's going to mentally check out. And Arizona, I'm not sold on Kingsbury. He's someone who came in with a lot of promise. This air raid offense, right? Let's get the 4 best wide receivers we can find in the league and an amazing quarterback, and that's going to be our offense. And yet the passing game hasn't actually been up to much. They're just using the 1 wide receiver pretty much. So you are a well-rounded offense, and defense can win in multiple ways. And now you've got a couple of quarterbacks who can come in if you have to, and you have to put Trey Lance in because of an injury in week 2, I still think that's going to work quite well. So.
Yeah, to be honest, I do as well. I'd prefer he does sit. So go back to 2005 when we picked up Alex Smith, and he didn't start straight away. I can't think he remembers. I think it was game 5. Game 5, Alex Smith came in, started, and I think it was just far too soon. I think he needed to sit for a year. But then we had the whole, he's gone through 6-7 coordinators in the first 6-7 seasons, so that didn't help him. And I don't want to see that happen with Trey Lance.
No,
I want to see him have some consistency, sit and learn, because we don't need him to start, because Jimmy can win games.
No, I agree. I think I read somewhere it was either first or second. Lance is the youngest player, I think, in the entire draft potentially. He's literally just gone 20. So, like you say, you need an offensive coordinator that's going to stay there and put an arm around him. I don't expect him to play until, well, now we've got an extension to the season, 17 games. You wouldn't want to see Lance until maybe at least week 10 or 11 if things aren't going well.
So he actually turns 21 next weekend, Lance. But he is still the youngest. Yeah. And he's had the fewest passing attempts ever to be taken in the first round.
That's an amazing stat.
Yeah.
I mean, especially considering we've had in our own division Mitchell Trubisky, who only played 17 games in his college career.
13.
Yeah.
13. So that's staggering. But I really am pulling for you guys actually in that division. I know a lot of other Lions fans will be kind of Rams fans now as their second team because of Stafford, but I've always liked how the 49ers run their organization. And, you know, I wish you the best for the season. Thank you so much for donating us your time today. It's been
no problem.
Great to talk to you, man.
Yeah,
thank you. Really appreciate your time. Thank you, Lee.
No problem. Good luck in the rest of the draft and good luck next season, guys.
And see you.
See you later.
Cheers.
Bye.